knowing what you're supposed to do and doing what you're supposed to do are two different things. And we talk about accountability all the time. And that's part of full accountability. We're accountable to our clients, but we also make sure our clients are accountable to us in both sides, because that's where we both feel successful. And that's when the difference really starts coming into play, is when everybody feels successful, when rarely is either side surprised.
Are you feeling overwhelmed, stuck, or uncertain about how to grow your business without sacrificing what really matters most? Welcome to The Business You Really Want, the show for women ready to build a sustainable, fully aligned business. Aligned with what, you ask? You, your values, your life. Seriously, it is possible. I'm Tanya Kubo, and along with business advisor extraordinaire Gwen Bortner, we're here to show you how. If your systems were in place, could you charge more and work less? Have you ever thought about that? Has that question ever crossed your mind? Because that's the question we are asking and we hope answering today. My name is Tanya Kubo, and I am joined, as always, by my favorite business operations expert, Gwen Bortner. And today, we're here to have yet another hard conversation. Are you sick of them yet? Because this one revolves around how your systems are affecting not just your efficiency, but also the perception of your value in the marketplace. Ouch, right? Hurts me too. It's okay. So Gwen, we're totally riffing off the cuff here based on a recent conversation we had together about working with service providers. And since you are the one who said, oh my gosh, this has to be a podcast episode, we have to have this conversation in front of other people because it's not enough to have it privately. You need to set the scene for us.
Well, and I love that you said that, because of course that is the whole purpose of this podcast. That was why we started the podcast, is to say, let's start having these conversations in public that you and I have very regularly in private. And we were talking about what has been happening in our world and things that we have seen. And what I heard you say, and then this is how I responded to it, was, yeah, these things are happening because their systems aren't in place. And this has been true with about 4 or 5 different vendors. So if you're one of our vendors, don't say, oh my gosh, that's me, unless it might be you. It might not be you, but.
Well, let me just interrupt to say, if it is you, we've already had the conversation. Yeah. All right. We're not passive aggressive like that.
No, we're not. But you know, it is the thing that what we also heard was, yeah, and they can't work with a higher end client because a higher end client wouldn't put up with this level of systems behavior. And as soon as you said that, I went ding, 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 ding. And that's where I did have that like really excited comment to say, yeah, people always think that systems is about improving their bottom line, which it often is, by reducing expenses. But what they don't realize is that having good, consistent systems in place also allows you to charge more. And so, using, this as just an example is, what if you did the exact same amount of work, but were able to charge your clients 50% more because those clients expect that level of systems and organization and all of the things that, if you aren't having to add more people, add more time, add more anything, all of that's going to go right to the bottom line. Now, often systems really is helping stuff go to the bottom line because it's taking away expenses. But people never talk about how systems could, in fact, actually increase your income, because we don't typically focus on that on the back end of the business, because systems are typically associated with the expense part of the business. But it is the difference of, are you organized? Are you consistent? Are you able to deliver a product in a way at a level that a higher level client who's willing to pay more would expect and therefore pay for? Or are you working at a level that means you're always working with the client who can't afford to pay more? And that means that you're stuck there all the time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Whew. There's a lot of places we could go here. So I think, when we were talking about this, I was recounting a conversation I'd had with a service provider. So I do sometimes when I'm doing fractional chief marketing officer work for clients, I will be the person who brings on subcontractors for projects, and I'll do that project management piece. And I was working with one service provider who I adore. And we work really well together, and, they produce a reliable product, but we were working with a corporate client. And when they delivered their piece, now, because we were working with a corporate client, we were charging corporate rates. Okay. Like, she has a completely different rate scale for a solopreneur than she does for corporate clients. So we're charging corporate rates. And what I got was exactly what I get when I worked with her and solopreneurs. And I was like, hey, this is not going to fly. And she was like, what do you mean? That's what I always give you. And I'm like, yeah, but you're getting paid twice what you typically get paid for this project. And with that comes the expectation of A, B, C, D, E, F. Why am I not receiving that? And she said, well, quite honestly, nobody's ever asked for that before. And when we were talking rates, yes, that is my rate for a corporate client, but I don't work with people who even know what that is, much less expect it. So I don't have a system in place to provide that. And then I had to be in that uncomfortable position of figuring out what to do, right?
Right.
Which was not fun, by the way. And as a result, I no longer work with that individual when I'm working with corporate clients, because they're just not there. And obviously they're not interested in being there.
Right. And this is one of those places where people will say, hey, you should work with corporate clients. You can charge more.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And they do have different expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is very reliable, very consistent, very high quality deliverability. And that there is no way that happens without systems.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit more about those systems? Like, what do the systems look like?
So the last episode we talked about weighing it and being flexible.
Mm-hmm.
There is way less flexibility in it.
Mm-hmm.
People don't have lots of choices, both for the customer and for the people in the process.
Mm-hmm.
They know what they're supposed to do. They know when they're going to do it. We don't allow any deadlines to slip. We know exactly how long each piece is going to
Mm-hmm.
take. If we say it's going to take a week, it takes a week, and that's it. And if something comes up, there is really great communication around the fact that,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, this very unusual thing happened either to an individual or within the process itself in the project, so that it's communicated early. So all of the other people, including the client, know way ahead of time that this is not working the way that it is supposed to work. And we're going to do what we can to get it fixed. And if we can't, this is what it's going to look like. And if we can't, do you still want it? I mean, there's this whole much more clear communication process every step of the way, knowing what all of the pieces are, and nothing is left to assumption.
Mm-hmm.
It is all very, very clear of what's going on, because otherwise people are investing in big bucks, often corporate clients. And one of the things is their reputation is on the line. And usually the people who are hiring you in a corporate world are not low-level people. They're usually higher level people. They do not want to put their job on the line.
Right.
Right? Because, yeah, they may be able to get another job, but no one wants to be let go once you're above, a pretty low level. I mean, no one really ever wants to be let go.
No.
But this is when, when you're starting to get into the director, vice president, executive vice president, senior vice president, level in anything that really feels like a larger corporation. And when I say larger corporation, I'm not saying like, 8,000 people. I'm talking 50 to 100 people. there's too much at risk there to not be getting the high quality. And we have worked with some folks that really deliver a great product when they deliver it.
Mm-hmm.
But notice I say when they deliver it. I can't count on it's going to be on time in the way that I want without any errors consistently.
Right.
And so I can't recommend them to any of my network. And of course, I have this really broad network where, I'm dealing with solopreneurs and I'm dealing with people who work with corporations. And when someone says, hey, can you work with this? It's like, yeah, I know someone who's really good. I can't recommend them.
Yeah.
Because I know they can't deliver in the consistent way that you need them to deliver. And systems is about consistency.
Okay. So systems is about consistency. And I feel like we've discussed that often enough on the podcast that, we can refer back to an episode or two. And I'm thinking of what's most helpful for our listener next, right? We can go two directions here. Direction one is we can walk through kind of our decision-making process and what we need from our service providers based on price point in order to be satisfied with service and then to recommend them. And what that will do is that really provides a playbook to the service provider who's listening. The other approach we can do is we can actually do some this versus that scenarios where, this is the level of system organization I expect at this price point. And this is the level of system and organization I expect at that price point to help people understand the difference between, I'm just going to make up a number here, but a $1,000 a month service versus a $2,000 a month service. Where do you want to go with this, Gwen, since this is your idea?
I'm going to say one more thing, which is neither of these. Because,
I love that.
That's how we roll. That's how we roll around here.
The type A side of me just crumbled and is now wallowing in a puddle of tears somewhere in my chair.
But not that we won't do the other. Yeah. Quite honestly.
Right.
But the thing that struck me as you were saying both of those things that we didn't bring up that I think is important because it's what is happening out in the universe is a lot of service providers are saying, oh my gosh, I'm not getting the same level of business that I was getting before.
Oh, I have a lot to say about that, Gwen Bortner. I have a lot to say.
I knew you would, which is why I thought I'd bring it up. Here's the thing. What was an okay get by level may not, even though you may not be able to charge more for it, you may not get the business if you aren't delivering it. And so this to me is the bigger problem that no one, we talk about the things that no one's talking about. And one of my special gifts is I see trends and patterns before most other people see them. And I say things when I was like, well, that can't be right. And then about a year later, it's like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what she said. So this to me really is why I got excited about this episode is you need to be able to stand out as a provider. And when you're doing adequate work like everybody else is, then what you're actually fighting on is price. And the only way to win is to lower your price. And that's a race to the bottom. So when you're actually providing, quote unquote, the same service, but at a different quality level, that gets noticed. And when someone says, yeah, my person does this and this and this, and it's like, yeah, that never happens to us. And they're like, well, who do you work with? That's when people leave one person and go work with somebody else. I mean, and this is why I think the market where a lot of people are struggling in the market right now that are in whatever service provider business, whether it's what I do, what you do, the vendors that we're using, it doesn't matter, is there has to be a different quality level to actually distinguish because everyone's trying to price and it's like, well, I'm going to raise my price. And at some point it's like, you're not worth it.
Right.
You are not worth that price.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they go to a competitor who may be newer, maybe isn't really as good as you are, but is delivering functionally the same quality of work at, I don't know, 20, 30% less. And so now how do you compete? Well, you either improve your level of service or you drop your price.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my third thing.
Oh, so.
Sorry.
Oh, no. Yeah. So, okay. All right. Well, let's pull a few things out of here. So the first is, right, I can't walk out my front door, or I cannot open up an internet browser tab without being confronted with, concerns about economics. My friend Rachel Allen, who's a copywriter and I adore, who always says, this is like the 9th internet apocalypse we've lived through, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like online business is dead. Nobody's buying courses. Nobody's buying coaching, yada, yada, yada. We hear this all the time. Our retailers, looking at your business especially, our retailers are like, people are just a lot more price sensitive. And really what it has to do with is a gift, so to speak, of the pandemic is that the pandemic created a much more savvy consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with all that time on their hands, they learned what other options are out there. And now that life is busier, they value not just their money more, but they value their time, they value their energy. And part of that better experience, right? Those solid systems that deliver consistency on time all the time. Part of that is making my life easier as a consumer. It's saving me from decision fatigue. It's saving me time and energy. And I'm just going to speak for myself here, but I know that I have clients that are the exact same way. I'm not going to look for alternatives as long as I experience an improvement in my life every day that I work with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, looking for an alternative, whether it's cheaper or whatever, that's more work that I don't have time for.
Right. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of time. And, people are often shocked that I have worked in a month-to-month fee structure for years and years and years now. I don't ever have minimum contracts these days at all.
Yeah.
And people are like, but then people can leave. It's like, yeah, but I also have people who stay for years and years and years and years and years. Why is that? Because they are getting the level of service that they expect to be getting for that. And they don't have any interest in doing that research that you're talking about. And so, and at the same point, I have people, it's like, I think I'm done. Great. And then they come back when they need it again, because they don't have any interest in looking for somebody else to solve the problem. Right. They know that I will jump right on it. What I will do, they have that experience. And so I don't ever worry about how long is someone going to stay with me.
Yeah. Yeah. That is definitely not a worry we have around here.
It is not a worry. And I attribute it to making sure that my highest priority is delivering really high quality service, whatever it is that we're doing. Right. And do I charge for it? Sure, I do. I am by far not the cheapest person doing anything that I'm doing. Right. I'm also not the most expensive either.
Yeah, that's
true. But by the same token, I don't worry about that piece because, for the most part, there's very few people that will compare to me because of the level of quality that I'm offering.
Yeah. So, okay. So we've said some, I know these are going to be hard things for people to hear.
Yeah, but that's also what we do.
It is what we do. And, yeah. And, you've never been one to shy away from being really forthright with what we do. But, rather than just stating the problem, which, at this point, what we've identified is that if you're struggling to get clients, if you're finding that business is faltering, the first place to look at is not the news to tell you about economic downturn, but it's really at your own internal systems and processes and determining whether you are providing the absolute best service that you can be providing. Are you setting yourself apart far enough from the competition to make others recognize the true value of what you offer? Are you really delivering that value? So now what we need to do, Gwen, is we need to give people some suggestions. They need to be able to walk away with some practical advice or at least some tips to implement in order to put their systems in place. That's how I'll say it.
Okay. So the first thing that I would say that you want to look at is how consistent is your delivery? And what I mean by that is how often is what you said you were going to do and what actually happened the same in every little spot that it can be measured. Mm-hmm. Okay. We don't have a lot of deadline driven things because that's not the way this business works. But one of the things that we do have is client meetings. I have a lot of client meetings.
Yeah.
You can, we can.
And you live your best life in client meetings.
I live my best life on Zoom, which I know, freaks people out, but it really does. And so for me, one of the things is how often do I have to reschedule a meeting? Mm-hmm. Okay. Them rescheduling a meeting is not a problem in my world because that's their side. But how often do I have to reschedule a meeting? How often am I late to a meeting? Mm-hmm. How often am I unprepared to talk about, whatever we're going to talk about? Mm-hmm. Those would be the three that I can think off right off the top of my head. So how many times am I failing on what I should be delivering? Mm-hmm. Now, and then once I start seeing that to say, okay, and how often and how big of a failure? Okay. So for me, because we've talked about it, rescheduling a client meeting needs to be a very, very rare occurrence. It does happen, you get the flu and you're sick and, we've had situations where planes did not do what planes were supposed to do. And now in the air,
yeah,
we're not going to have the meeting, right? Because it's like illegal to have video calls on the plane. They say that. So
stinking FAA.
Yeah, exactly. So, it does happen, but how often is that happening? That would be, that's a big one. How late am I to another meeting? If I'm a minute late, sometimes that's just Zoom being weird and, not letting you in.
Not telling you people are in your waiting room. That's what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, those things happen. But am I 5 minutes late? Am I 10 minutes late? Anything beyond 10 minutes is like, I have that for me, that's like, I might as well have not been at the meeting.
Right.
To me, that's like not even attending the meeting. And so how often are those things happening? And saying, are there things that we need to do to shore that up? Mm-hmm. That would be the absolute first thing is where am I not delivering what I actually said I was going to deliver? Mm-hmm. Once we've identified them, then that's where I would focus first.
Yeah. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, that was it.
Okay. Well, and so so we've worked together now for 2 years. And so what I'm going to add to this conversation is from a practical standpoint of how we approach that. Because you're right? Like I have seen you cancel client meetings due to sickness probably twice in the last 2 years. Scheduling snafu once, and that was really the plane's fault, not our team's fault. But part of the systems piece that we have in place that makes this all work is, so we do allow, you have a booking calendar that allows clients to book during your working times. We as a team are more than happy to facilitate the booking, especially if we have to work, we work with some organizations. So we're working with the assistant of the assistant. We're happy to do all of that, but we do, plan A is for the client to be in the driver's seat of scheduling the meetings. Now, here's something that I see with a lot of my clients and a lot of my peers in the consulting world. I send out the booking link. The client knows they get one meeting a week or one meeting a month, whatever it is, and they have my link, they book it. And if they don't book it, oh well. because it's on them, right? They are 100% in the driver's seat. And part of what sets us apart is we track their booking. If they're supposed to get a meeting a week and we look ahead to the next month and we don't see a meeting a week, we reach out. Is there a problem with the booking link? Because you would not believe how many times the booking link fails and nobody tells you about it. I am amazed. Like, they just assume it's them.
This is true.
Right? They're just like, I must be dumb. Oh, my computer must not like it. Oh, it must not like my computer. Oh, well, that's my stupid tax, whatever they want to say, right? But it's amazing how often they won't tell you that your booking link is broken. So we reach out, was there a problem with the booking link? Is there somebody else that we should be working with to get these meetings on your calendar? Because, just because you're the person who signed on the dotted line doesn't necessarily mean you're the boss of your own schedule.
True.
And then we also have the hard conversation. I don't think any consultant listening to this wants to hear this. If it goes too long where we're having trouble getting their consistent meetings, we don't continue to take their money. We have the hard conversation of, are you actually in a place where you're able to take advantage of the service that you bought? Right? Because we have worked with, when I started working with you, you had some larger corporate clients and their schedule wasn't their own, even though they were senior VP level.
Right.
They had people who were higher up than them in the food chain who very freely would pull them into ad hoc meetings. And so they were standing you up almost left and right, not quite left and right.
But it was fun.
And we had to have the conversation of, okay, well, we can't move the needle for you because you can't make your meetings. And we understand that's not even your fault. Like, we're not blaming you. We get it.
Right.
But we shouldn't be taking from your budget in this way. Right. So those are all systems that we have established, right? We have a tracking sheet that tracks every client, how many meetings that they are supposed to get based on their level of service. We have a system in place where we're looking 3 months ahead and going, okay, do we have enough openings to accommodate these clients? We try to book most of them just a month ahead because we don't want a bunch of cancellations either on their end or on our end because of travel and such. And you tend to travel quite a bit for speaking. And then we have a system in place to double check that system. And we have a whole communications plan, right? We already have templated emails that we send out when we need to based on what might be happening so that we provide that, I call it a wraparound service, right? Because we are not just focused on the service that we deliver, but we're also focused on supporting them and taking full advantage of the service we deliver.
Well, and I love that you shared all of that. That is exactly right. And knowing what you're supposed to do and doing what you're supposed to do are two different things. And we talk about accountability all the time. And that's part of full accountability. We're accountable to our clients, but we also make sure our clients are accountable to us in both sides, because that's where we both feel successful.
Yeah.
And that's when the difference really starts coming into play, is when everybody feels successful, when rarely is either side surprised.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, that's the very first thing you look for is, are people surprised or are they not surprised on a regular basis?
Mm.
And if they are surprised, are they, delighted surprised? Because it's like, gosh, nobody ever shows up always on time.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had someone who didn't cancel on me at least once a month or reschedule once a month.
Right.
That's a delightful surprise. I want to be able to do that. But it needs to be, it needs to match what I say that I'm going to do. And so, that to me is the very, very first piece that you're looking for. And most of the time, the way to get there is simplify what you're saying you're going to deliver.
Say just a little bit more about that for me.
Don't try and deliver everything that you could ever possibly deliver. Think about the things that you can always deliver at an exceptional level. There's a story, I want to say it's a Mike Michalowicz story, possibly out of Profit First, but with all of his books, I can't tell you.
He has written a lot of books.
A lot of books, but I'm pretty sure it's a Mike Michalowicz story. I may even be giving the wrong credit here. But he talked about someone who was a painter, okay, and was an excellent painter and was doing all of, the painting things. And someone said, because you've got the ladder, can you also make this repair on my roof?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy was like, oh yeah, no, I can totally make that repair, because he's, a lot of the people who do that kind of work often are very handy. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, oh yeah, I could start doing roof work too. And so he makes the little repair and then starts saying, oh, but I could also do roofs. And it becomes this thing. And what happens is he's actually dispersing all of his attention to 1,000 different things. And what he's excellent at is painting. And now only 10% of his work is painting. And 90% of his work is doing all of these things that he's, somewhere between, B and C minus at doing, instead of having 90% of his work being his A plus work of painting.
I think that's in the pumpkin plan.
It might be in the pumpkin plan. That it wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it's a Mike Michalowicz thing. But that is the thing, is often as entrepreneurs, we like doing lots of things. We are capable of doing lots of things. We are interested in lots of things. And as we work with the clients, like, oh, and could you do this? Oh yeah, I could do that. And 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 all of a sudden we're doing a lot of things and, not really that well, as opposed to doing the thing that they hired us for really, really well.
Yeah. And you have just, you've laid that out beautifully, especially, for the service provider. But we've also seen that, I'll call it Frankenstein business, but fracture of a business, with some of our product-based businesses,
Oh yeah.
It's
happens
the same
exactly
thing.
The same way.
Right. And I've seen you talk to people about this. It's when the brick and mortar storefront wants to include an online shop. So rather than just putting on their website what product they have in store, actually letting people purchase it online and then have that delivered to them. You're the one who points out that's actually two different businesses.
Yeah. And these days, because of COVID and all the other things, do you need to have an online shop? Yes. But should you expect it to be 50% of your income? No. Right. Not unless you develop a whole business model around that piece. Can it support your brick and mortar customers? And yes, it can. So that maybe, there's someone that only comes to your area, 3 times a year. They want to support you the rest of the time. Absolutely, positively, that is a great thing to do. But a business model where it's generating, an equivalent amount of income, that's a different business model. That is different than a brick and mortar model. So that's two different types of business, two different types of customers. Where I thought you were going to go with the product piece is also saying, yeah, but I've had a customer come in who wanted this thing and I didn't have it, so now I carry this thing too.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that doesn't make sense either. Because now it's the same thing. You've brought in a whole shelf worth of, X, whatever X happens to be, and you're only selling it every once in a while because the bulk of your customers don't actually want X. Well, that was a bad use of money. And same thing, it's another fracture of the business. So focus on who is your customer? What do you actually do? Stay in your lane, whether it's a product lane or a service lane. Stay in your lane. Know what your lane is. For us, I don't actually provide any of the people who do the work. People are often like, well, so that means you're going to write up SOPs. No, I'm not. There is not one chance on earth you're going to ever have me bill you for writing up an SOP. Is not ever going to happen. I can. Have I done it before? Absolutely. Positively. Do I know how? For sure. Is that part of our business model? Absolutely not. Will I refer you to people who could? For sure. I have great referral networks, but that's your own engagement. I know how to stay in my lane. I don't say, oh, and we could do that and we could do this and stay in my lane.
Mm-hmm.
Do the thing I'm doing.
Just to sort of expand on that a little bit more, our service delivery does include helping you to decide when you need to update your SOPs, prioritizing the SOPs that you need to tackle, right? But the actual hands-on doing, there are other people who have much stronger systems in place to provide that level of service. And that's, and we love referring to those people because just like our clients can expect consistent delivery from us, we know that our clients are going to get consistent delivery from them.
Exactly. And that they wouldn't necessarily get consistent delivery from us.
Right. Not if they want SOPs written. That is for sure. Again, just because I can doesn't mean I should. So, Gwen, okay, we are out of time. I think today's conversation is probably one of our most important to date. Because while it's about pricing, right, and the value of your offer, and it's about the sort of what's happening in the market and why some people might find that they're losing clients, it's really about the true cost of inefficiency. And though it's not true in every industry, there is a strong relationship between reliable systems and the perception of value others have when it comes to working with you, not to mention your reputation in the marketplace. And though context always matters, it is worth asking yourself, dear listener, the hard question that we kicked off the episode with, which is, if your systems were in place, could you charge more and work less? I'll add, would you get better referrals? Because that's something to be paying attention to as well. And if you're ready to finally confront your systems and your business operations, Gwen and I are always here to help. You can visit us online at thebusinessyoureallywant.com. Click on the services tab at the top to learn more, or continually listen to this show and see how you can make incremental improvement to your own systems and operations over time. Thanks for tuning in to The Business You Really Want with Gwen Bortner. I'm Tanya Kubo, reminding you that sustainable success is within reach. Make sure to subscribe to the show and visit thebusinessyoureallywant.com for more resources. Until next time, keep dreaming big and acting with intention.